All right, so today we're jumping into something, well, something pretty heavy. It's a deeply personal topic, and we're going to look at it through a really ancient lens. We're talking about Buddhism and the ethics of suicide.
So let's just get right to it. The big question. Is suicide ever okay?
Now, you probably have an immediate answer to that in your head, right? But what's so fascinating, and why we're talking about this, is that a Buddhist text from way, way back, over 2,000 years ago, has a take on this that is probably not what you're expecting. It's surprising.
All right, so let's get into some of the stories from the original texts themselves, because some of them are pretty startling. First up, this section, the monk and the knife.
Okay, so in the early scriptures, right, the suttas, we find these stories about three specific monks, Vakali, Channa, and Gadika. And the core of their story is this. All three of them took their own lives. And the texts are incredibly direct about this. They don't sugarcoat the suffering at all. Take the monk Channa. He was in just unbearable physical pain. And he's quoted saying this, "I will use the knife, friend Sariputta. I have no desire to live. I will use the knife blamelessly." Wow. I mean, you can really feel the weight of that, can't you? Okay, so here's where things get really interesting. The first big twist. When the Buddha finds out about their deaths, he doesn't disapprove at all. In fact, it's the opposite. He actually confirms that they achieved liberation, nibbana. Now, that seems to fly in the face of everything you'd expect from a major spiritual tradition, right? But hold on, because the story is not that simple. It never is. As we're about to see, there's a big seeming contradiction. It looks like there's actually a rule against suicide. Because you see, in another story from the texts, the Buddhist reaction is the complete opposite. He comes down hard on a group of 60 monks who also took their own lives. So, what gives? How can it be okay for those first 3 monks, but not for these 60? What's the difference? Well, it all came down to why they did it, their motivation. These 60 monks, they weren't acting from a place of clarity or trying to escape unbearable pain. They'd actually misunderstood a teaching about the body, and they acted out of this deep self-loathing and disgust. So this right here, this is the core puzzle. You've got the 3 monks, their act leads to liberation, no problem. Then you have the 60 monks. Same act, but it gets strongly condemned. The action is identical, but the context, the motivation, and the Buddha's reaction, they couldn't be more different, total polar opposites.
So how do we make sense of this? How do we solve this puzzle? It all boils down to one absolutely critical thing, the mind at death.
And this is really the central point the texts are making. The most important thing wasn't the physical act itself. Nope, it was the state of mind that was driving the act. To really get this, we need to know a key word from Pali, the language of these texts. The word is kusala. It basically means wholesome or skillful. It's talking about a mind that's free from negative stuff like greed, hatred, and delusion. And the opposite of that? That's akusala, unwholesome. Okay, so looking at it this way makes everything click into place. When the reason for the act was escaping pain with a clear head, that state of mind was considered kusala, wholesome. And what was the result? No disapproval. But when the reason was rooted in things like anger, self-disgust, despair, all those akusala, or unwholesome states, the act was condemned. See? It's all about what's going on in the mind. So if the mental state is so important, how does that play out in the actual rules? Well, let's look at the main rule about killing. What's really interesting is how it's framed. It's seen as a kind of training, not a strict command from on high. Yeah, the first precept, it goes, "I undertake the training precept to abstain from killing." And that word training is everything. It's not like a thou shalt not kill kind of divine order. It's more of a personal commitment, a practice you take on to not cause harm. And get this, the monastic legal code, the Vinaya, makes a really important distinction. Killing someone else, that's a huge deal. It's a major offense. You get kicked out of the monastic order for good. But ending your own life, it's actually classified as a minor offense, just wrong conduct. It doesn't get you expelled.
So why such a massive difference in how those two acts are treated? The texts seem to suggest it all comes down to agency. When you kill someone else, you're taking away their choice, their self-determination. But when a person chooses to end their own life, whether that's a good or bad decision, they are, in a sense, exercising their own agency.
All right, so this is all really fascinating ancient philosophy and history, but what does it mean for us right now? Let's try to bring this home and look at some questions for modern life.
You know, the one thing that's super clear is that these texts don't give you a simple yes or no. There are no easy black and white answers here. What they do give us is a really powerful framework for thinking deeply about these things, especially when it comes to really modern issues like death with dignity or assisted dying.
So instead of just a rule, this ancient view gives us a set of questions to ask ourselves. Like, what is the real motivation here? Is it genuinely coming from a place of clarity, of peace? And what about the ripple effects, the consequences for the people we love? Have we truly looked at every single alternative? And maybe the biggest question of all, is the goal here to reach a state of real peace? Or is the decision being twisted by unwholesome emotions like fear or anger or just pure despair?
And that kind of leaves us with this one final, really provocative thought to chew on. When we're faced with this ultimate question, maybe the most important question to ask isn't, am I allowed to do this? But something more like, can this be done wisely?